We don't exist.
You're right. Okay. So, good afternoon, and I would like to thank all the members who are active in this important forum. Without your activity, we could not make this forum happen. Special thanks to the best, to Professor Judy, Director of the Finker Institute. Judy, without your support and wise advices, I could not coordinate this forum, this important forum, the book, everything. You are my really inspiration.
We are a team.
Yes.
We work together.
Thank you. For the next year, we have some plans. Of course, we discuss together about it. And of course, we will update you soon. We are looking forward to publish our book, which will be, I'm sure, very, very interesting. Today, we have a special guest, which I hope in the future will join to our forum, Mr. Gershon Pinchevski, independent researcher, lecturer in Yad Vashem, second generation of Holocaust survivors. Lately, he published the book, A Last Act of Grace, the story of righteous among the nations in Israel. Since this is our last meeting, maybe in the end of the meeting, Judy, you would like to summarize this year, okay?
Yes, I'll be happy to.
Great. So, the lecture is based on the book, Last Act of Grace, a memorial and commemoration project to the righteous among the nations in Israel. Gershon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
In advance, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to give here a lecture in this important forum. Thank you
for hosting me, and it's an honor for me to speak to you today and to present the part or main issues for my project, Last Act of Grace, that I initiated. And the project is focused on two main topics. The first one is commemorating of the righteous among the nations who lived in Israel or who asked to be buried here. The second one is education of future generations in light of the legacy that those righteous left us. I choose to open the lecture with the image of Piotr Bodnik. Piotr was a righteous among the nations from Ternopil district, now in Western Ukraine, who during the war saved Adela Helreich, a Jewish girl. At the end of the war, Piotr married Adela, and together they emigrated to Israel. The image of Piotr plowing the land of Israel in Kfar Warburg, for those who know the place, expressed the essence of the lecture and the project as well. The act of plowing, in my opinion, deeply symbolizes the connection between a person and his country. As I assume you know, there are 4 criteria according to which Yad Vashem determines who is eligible for the title, Righteous Among the Nations. I will mention them briefly. Active involvement of a non-Jew rescuer in saving one or several Jews from the threat of death, deportation, or deportation to death camps. Risk of the rescuer's life, liberty, or position. The initial motivation being the intention to help persecuted Jews, that's mean not for payment or another reward, such as religious conversion of the saved person, adoption of a child, etc. And the existence of testimony of those who were helped, or at least unequivocal documentation establishing the nature of the rescue and its circumstances. Now, how did the project start? In summer 2020, I gave a lecture to the guides of the Galicia Museum in Krakow. The topic of the lecture was sites in Israel which are related to Poland. The main Polish site that I knew then was the grave of Colonel Kowalski in Kibbutz Yard Mordechai in southern Israel, as you can see here on the screen. Kowalski was a retired colonel from the Polish army and a representative of the Phillips Company in Warsaw on the eve of the World War II. after the German occupation of Warsaw, Kowalski took advantage of the movement permit he had as the representative of the Philips Company and entered the Warsaw Ghetto to save Jews in diverse ways. It is estimated that by the end of the war, Kowalski had saved 56 Jews. In 1947, he married Leah, a young Jewish woman whom he saved during the war. 10 years later, in 1957, Kowalski and Leah emigrated to Israel. Kowalski, already 60 years old, in poor health, worked in a grocery store and barely made a living. When Prime Minister Ben-Gurion heard about Kowalski's difficulties, he arranged him a part-time job in the archives of Yad Vashem. In 1971, Kowalski passed away, and at this point, another drama began in his story. Kowalski, who wasn't a Jew, asked to be buried in a Jewish cemetery among his Jewish brothers, in his words. Despite his request, and despite being a righteous among the nations, no local authority agreed to bury him because of the prohibition to bury a non-Jew in a Jewish cemetery. It was only after much effort and after the intervention of important rabbis, Kibbutz Yad Mordechai agreed to bury him among other Jewish graves, as you can see in the center of the screen now. As I continue to investigate, I learned that over 100 righteous among the nations actually lived in Israel among us and decided to tie their fate to the fate of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. I learned as well that there has been a positive change in the attitude of the Israeli society towards the righteous among the nations and their burial in Jewish cemetery. Those facts were clear to me while reading an article about the righteous among the nation burial plot that was established in Kiryat Shaul cemetery in Tel Aviv in the late 90s, as you can see now on the screen. It was established at the time by the mayor of Tel Aviv and by the chief rabbi of the city, Israel Lau, who is a Holocaust survivor from Piotrków Trybunalski in Poland. It turned out that about 30 righteous among the nation are buried in this plot. In addition, it turned out that 2 righteous among the nation were still alive. Unfortunately, one of them passed away in last December. What a surprise it was to learn that many of them actually lived between us all those years. We knew only partial information about them, about their names, addresses, occupation, where they were buried, family member, about the family members, what happened to the Jews that they saved, and whether there was a connection between them and the survivors after the war. As I realized, there was no official commemoration of these wonderful people, and that there are righteous among the nation who died with no family to visit their graves. As there was no database about gathered basic information about this unique group, that was the motive in initiating the Last of Grace project. I can show you 4 examples about the gaps that we had 3 years ago. On the upper left side, you can see now Yaroslava Levitska. Yaroslava Levitska is still alive. She's still alive. She's living in Haifa, and she's speaking. She can't tell her story, but she was unknown to most of my colleagues, for example, in Yad Vashem, and not only in Yad Vashem. Here, and on the left side of the screen, below Yaroslava Levitska, you can see the grave of Nina Cherovskaya in northern Israel, in Carmiel. It's no mention on her grave, on the tombstone, that she's righteous among the nations. And on the right side, you can see, I call it neglected, the neglected grave of Esther Boasevian Greenberg from Holland. When I first saw it on August 2020, I was shocked because I said, how could it be that there is no tombstone? I didn't know then the full story, and later I will show you her grave today, but 3 years ago, it shocked me. And Jerzy Pinchevski from Poland, after that he lived in Monaco, and he asked to be buried in Israel. But the issue that there is no family, there is no friends that will visit his grave on the Memorial Day of the Holocaust Memorial Day, or principally, no one knows him in Israel. So all those cases and more initiated me to start the project. At this stage, I complied an initial list that included all the information and the gaps about the righteous among the nation who lived in Israel. I presented the data to Yad Vashem, and we decided to initiate this project that we named Last Act of Grace. The name symbolizes the desire to remember and to commemorate them as a last act of grace in their honor. In order to approve the project in Yad Vashem, we needed arguments that would pursue the Institute to invest time and money in this project. The slides that I will show you now explains a bit about the legal and moral basis on which the project is based on. Yad Vashem operates in accordance with the Israeli Parliament law, which stipulates that the duty of remembrance will also apply to the remembrance of the righteous among the nation. The righteous among the nations who lived in Israel, we call them Last Act of Grace group, had left us a heritage of values such as acceptance of personal responsibility, modesty, patriotism, altruism, values which are very important to pass on to future generations. We set a number of key goals. First of all, what did we know in the beginning of the project? Only 2 points that we speak about. We estimated that about 130 righteous among the nation lived in Israel, but we had information only just about 109 of them. From those 109 righteous among the nations, 32 graves that were not located. This was not acceptable. How come that people who lived in Israel got the title of righteous, etc.? We don't know where they were buried. So we set a few key goals. The first one was locating all the tombs of the righteous among the nations who lived in Israel and marking them as Last Act of Grace tombs using commemorative plaques, since not all of the tombs had mentioned that the deceased was righteous among the nation. The second goal was conducting annual memorial ceremonies beside the graves. And the third was transferring the Last Act of Grace legacy from the private memory. I mean, from the people who knew their story is the families of the survivors or the family of the righteous, but only them knew the story. And we want to transfer it to the public memory. That's mean guides of Yad Vashem, other guides who are guiding in Poland, schools, students in universities, etc., uploading the story to Yad Vashem website, etc. In the beginning of the project, we recruited about 500 volunteers and divided them into 109 teams, according to the names that we had of the righteous. The volunteers, who are not historians or Yad Vashem guides, spent about 2 months locating the graves, contacting the families of the righteous, whether in Israel or around the world, contacting the survivors who were still alive, and collecting information and documentation and documents. On Holocaust Remembrance Day of 2021, dozens of official ceremonies has been held all over Israel near the graves of those righteous. I would like to share with you one story of one person, Professor Pavel Orbachevsky, that best illustrates the essence of the Last Act of Grace project. Pavel was born in 1887 in Poland. His parents were estate owners, and he was brought up in the spirit of intelligence and tradition of the fight for freedom. For generations, his family participated in rebellions, among them the Polish January Rebellion of 1863. In 1905, Pavel began studying civil engineering in the Polytechnic Institute in St. Petersburg. There, he met a Jewish student, Herschel Schwartz, who told him about the suffering of the Jewish people. The brave friendship that developed between them tied a special bond between Pavel and the Jewish people. Due to his positions against manifestation of anti-Semitism, he was called a Jewish slave. Under the influence of Herschel Schwartz, Pavel organized an armed group of 20 students and foiled a pogrom by the rioters of the ultranationalist organization Black Hundreds in Zhytomyr Jews. After the failure of 1905 revolution against the Russian Tsar, Pavel went to Pittsburgh in the USA, where he continued his studies. In Pittsburgh, he met Dr. Chaim Zhitlovsky, whom he saw as an ideological teacher. Dr. Zhitlovsky was a Russian-born Jewish writer, journalist, revolutionary, and socialist politician. Gorbachev saw him as a kind of a mentor also in the field of human rights, yet he didn't agree with Zhitlovsky's anti-Zionist approach. 2 years later, in 1907, Pavel finished his studies in Pittsburgh as a civil engineer, returned to Russia, and helped the Jews of Odessa in organizing against anti-Semitism actions. In the following years, Pavel was appointed as a professor of hydrology, mechanics, and physics at educational institution in Omsk, Minsk, and Kiev. And in 1919, he was appointed as a professor at the Higher School of Mechanics in Warsaw. In 1930, he married Helena Gita Zaltzman, who was Jewish. I deliberately emphasized Gorbachevsky's unique connections to the Jewish world until the outbreak of the World War II, so that we can understand his future motivation to save Jews during the war. And I will briefly mention it. After the occupation of Warsaw by Germans, Pavel was offered to join the Warsaw Self-Help Committee. After consulting his very good friend, Janusz Korczak, Pavel took over the management of the area where Korczak's children's home was located, and which also included many Jews. He began helping the residents who were left without a roof over their head, handing out food, clothes, and furniture. He provided forged documents to Jewish students, some of whom he taught before the war, so they could move freely around Warsaw. Later, he allowed more than 20 Jews to hide in his office in the committee building and made sure that they were provided with food. One of the apartments where he hid Jews was on 89 Zlota Street on the Aryan side. I assume that you know the address. The address is familiar to you because today a remnant of the Warsaw Ghetto Wall is located just next to it. These are just some of Pavel's rescue actions. Pavel himself chose to live next to his wife in Warsaw, in the Warsaw Ghetto, from which he was allowed to live and enter. After the war, Pavel and Helena submitted a request to emigrate to Israel and were accepted. However, in 1950, when the passports were already in their hands, Pavel was arrested for spying for Israel and was brutally interrogated. After 2 years, his wife Helena was also arrested, and in 1954, both were sentenced to death. Their sentence was changed to 7 years in prison, and in 1956, the couple were pardoned. Although Professor Gorbachevsky was offered a job at the university and a pension, all he wanted was to emigrate to Israel. On March 1957, Pavel and Helena Gorbachevsky arrived to Israel on the ship Jerusalem. they lived in Israel and they did not have any children together. Professor Pavel Orbachevsky passed away in 1977. When we began the project, although I tried, I couldn't locate his grave. However, the volunteers that handled the case managed to locate information according to which he was buried in Hulon Cemetery. It's in the southern of Tel Aviv. When the volunteers arrived to the cemetery, they saw an X marking on the land above the grave of Pavel, made by Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha is the Jewish organization which is responsible for burial. This was Pavel Orbachevsky's grave with no tombstone or name on it. The volunteers contacted Chevra Kadisha and asked them, "Are you sure this is the grave?" And again, they received the answer that this was indeed the Professor Pavel Orbachevsky grave. The volunteers were amazed and asked themselves, how could it be that there is no tombstone or name on it on the grave? After further examination, it emerged that Professor Orbachevsky died in 1977. He contributed his body to science, and 5 years later, in 1982, he was buried without a tombstone and without a message being given to his widow, Helena. Helena herself died 60 years after him without knowing that her beloved husband was buried, and by amazing combination of circumstances, she was buried about 200 meters near him. In any case, after all of us, both the volunteers and the team that led the project in Yad Vashem recovered from the initial shock and excitement, we decided that until the upcoming Holocaust Remembrance Day in 2021, we will place a tombstone on his grave. The Chevra Kadisha donated the tombstone, and a few days before Holocaust Remembrance Day, we arrived at the grave of Professor Orbachevsky to hold him the first funeral ceremony since he passed away. Together, we prayed the traditional Jewish prayers, Kaddish, and El Maleh Rachamim, God of Mercy, and we gave a speech in his memory. On a personal note, and with sincerity, I would like to point out that all of us, everyone who were present at the ceremony, were extremely moved by the privilege of doing a last act of grace with this wonderful and brave man. I would like to read in his memory, in the memory of Professor Orbachevsky, a small part of a speech he gave at the ceremony in which he received recognition as a righteous among the nation. And you can follow me on the screen. The day of receiving the badge of distinction is one of the greatest days of my life. I received it not for excellence in the battlefield, not for inventing an atomic weapon. I received this badge for rescue and help I provided to my brothers and sisters close to my heart when their lives were in great danger. And for that, I am proud. I am proud of this distinction also due to another reason. I received it neither from a politician nor from a scientist. The man who awarded me the title serves as a representative of humanism. This man is the judge of the Supreme Court in the state of Israel, a country that I dreamed about in my youth. Let me explain in a few words what is in my heart. Many years ago, it was said that truth, justice, and mercy will rule in court. These three principles were put into practice many years later in the Holy Land. The badge of honor was given to me at the right time. I feel in my heart that I will be allowed to enter the next world with a clean conscience and a pure heart. Please allow me, my dear friends, to kiss and hug you with all my heart. As I mentioned, so far, we know of 123 righteous among the nations who lived in Israel. Professor Pinchevski is honestly only one story out of many powerful and amazing stories that were revealed during the project. In the time I have left, I will speak shortly about the aspects of the further contribution made by those wonderful people, those righteous among the nations, to the community in which they lived in Israel. For example, you can see Esther Boasivian Greenberg. This is the same neglected, what I thought it neglected grave that I told you in the beginning of the lecture. Esther was a righteous among the nation born in the Netherlands, and she came to Israel in the early 60s to contribute to the young country with her skills as a nurse. She married in Israel, and she worked as a nurse all over her life. Esther initiated two important enterprises. She founded a woman clinic in the city, in Kiryat Shaul, in the city where she lived, where tests for the early detection of breast cancer was available for free. She also established a cafe that was accessible to a population with special needs. The name of the cafe is Nagish Cafe. It's double meaning, Nagish in Hebrew, that we will serve you, and Nagish, it's accessible. So Nagish Cafe, in the first project of its kind, it's an accessible cafe for disabled people, was located in Ramat Yishai in North Israel, and was operated by people with special needs, from whom the place provided employment and livelihood. The acts of grace of Esther and many others did in the Holocaust and later in the communities where they lived in Israel inspire as a model for a positive human behavior. Today, we can name several achievements of the project. Locating two righteous among the nation who lived in Israel. As I said, unfortunately, one of them passed away in the last December, revealing 14 righteous among the nation that were not known to us. Their names wasn't written in any place. For example, Una Shimaita from Vilnius, that just 6 months ago, I find that she lived in Israel between 53 to 56. Locating 150 graves, 8 graves that are yet to be located, and marking most of them, I will show you with the plaque of Last Act of Grace, laying a tombstone on Professor Pinchevski grave. This is the 3rd year that ceremonies, official ceremonies, near to Last Act of Grace graves are conducted on the annual Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, and enriching the existing database regarding those righteous who lived in Israel, and publishing the book, Last Act of Grace, which is gathering all the stories. A significant, here you can see a few examples, the outcomes of the project. For example, on the left side, it's the article about Yaroslava Levitska, which lives in Haifa. The grave, I can say the forgotten grave of a wonderful and brave and a leader woman, Vladislava Homs, which was known as the angel from Lviv. I think she saved hundreds, if not more than, of Jewish children. And she was after that in Lviv, in Zhigota, in Warsaw, etc. This is the plaque that we put on most of the graves. You can see here, for example, Ronnie Grossman. He is the non-biological grandson of Veronica Prochai from Budapest. She saved his father, and his father invited her to live in Israel. She's buried in Haifa. And those are only 2 examples. I can say that a significant achievement of the project is that we assimilating, it's a process, okay? It's a very slow process, assimilating the project and the heritage and the values of the righteous among the nations in the society in Israel For example, my colleagues, the guides who have been exposed to this project are now incorporating those stories into the tours they conduct and also visiting those graves. Today, there are few schools that are commemorating the stories of righteous among the nation who lived in their city for the third year, and they are in contact with the families, doing research about them and writing values about them for Wikipedia. And the project, of course, is yet to be finished. So thank you for listening, and I would like to end the presentation with a few images, which is worth than 1,000 words. You can see here Jan Abraham Brewer, which is from Holland. He saved his wife Teresa, that she was, of course, Jewish. He was a Christian. After that, he converted in Israel. And on Holocaust Remembrance Day in 2021, we held a ceremony on the grave. This is the grave of Abraham. This is the grave of Teresa. On the screen, you can see his family. This illustrates the well-known saying from the Jewish sources, he who saves one soul is as one who has saved all the world. We can see people of all ages, a woman and a man, religious and secular, and everyone lives thanks to Jan Avraham Brewer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gershon. I think that this subject is really good to finish our academic year because it gives so much hope and so much values. I myself met you, Gershon, when you came to the ceremony. We organized in the Mashmaut Center for one of the righteous among the nation that you discovered a grave lately, last year, I think it was, in June. And the family is from Kiryat Motzkin. Ilana Harel was saved by this righteous among the nation. I don't remember exactly the name now, but also Ilana Harel invited her to live Bronislava, yes? Something like Bronislava her name was?
Valentina Ivanovska.
Valentina Ivanovska, and Ilana invited her to live with her, and she lived five years, I think, until she died, and she's buried in Akko, in the cemetery, in the Christian cemetery in Akko. And all the Ilana's family, the boys, a young boy, thought she is really her aunt, biological aunt. And only when he grew up, he understood that she was the woman that saved his mother's life. So really thank you for a really fascinating lecture, and the floor is for questions.
May I have?
Yes.
Please. One remark and a couple of questions. The lecture was really great. This is connected with the topic I'm dealing with, so I was very glad to hear it. In Poland, there is a law that after 20 years, you can liquidate a grave that is not paid. And there is an exception. There is a new law introduced about the war veterans, and when the grave is on the list, you cannot, destroy the grave and make another burial there. And the first question is the same in Israel, or it is not allowed to liquidate the grave in Israel? For example, Professor Paweł Horbaczewski, his grave was in danger of liquidation before this project was introduced. The other question is where I can find the list of the graves in this project. It is it somewhere in the internet, at the internet? And other question is, did you ask for permission to put a plaque on a grave, or you did it you decide yourself and you do not ask anyone. And the last question is about schools. In which forms schools are involved in spreading the knowledge of the righteous they care about, the graves they care about? Also, a couple of questions. I hope that you understood and remembered them. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm apologizing that I'm not speaking English fluently, but I will try to answer. So first of all, it's not allowed to liquidate a grave. And the case of Pavel Orbachevsky is a case of unfortunately, that's what happened. It was not made, wasn't done deliberately because he wasn't a Jewish or something like this. But I hope that we fixed this mistake and gave him the honor. The list of the graves. First of all, I can give you personally through Leah Ganor, but we are working on on those days. We are working of uploading all the stories and the graves to Google Map and to the website of Yad Vashem, so it will be accessible for the public. It will be in Hebrew in the first place. I hope in the future it will be in English. And about the plaques, we set a principle. We won't put a plaque without the permission of the family or the cemetery in case there is no family. Okay, the sensitivity was the first thing that we pay attention to this. For example, in Warsaw, there is Zadislav Skavara, who lived in Ramat Sharon in Israel, but he was buried in Warsaw, and we put the plaque with his son, with his family together. We didn't, the same in Kaunas in Lithuania, in Vladislav Zdrupa's grave. We did it with his daughter. In case that we don't have permission and we don't have the permission from the family or from Chavra Kadisha, the official authority of the cemetery, we are not putting the plaques. And there are families, few, very rare, that told us, please do nothing. Don't put a plaque, don't come, don't pick up documentation. So we honored their request. About schools, if I hear or understand the question, schools are making research about the righteous among the nations. There are special one school in Haifa, in the northern Israel. They are making research, they're writing values to Wikipedia, and now they are making conferences. They brought the second generation of the righteous who lives in Israel, and they are asking them questions. And now they intend to start a film project to take the stories and to make short films about them. So another school is going, visiting the graves and telling the story. The pupils, they get a mission to learn the story and to tell it near the graves. Now I'm in kind of discussion with the Ministry of Education in Israel in terms that they will adapt the project and they will assimilate the project in several education platforms. I hope I answered your questions.
Yes, you answered.
Thank
you very much. I was thinking about similar thing you already done for a couple of years in Poland to put up plaques on the graves of righteous among the nations. Probably with the cooperation with the Israel embassy, and maybe it would be possible to put the plaques and to ask schools as well to cooperate and to do something like you did, but in Poland.
I think we can write to Yaakov Libne, to the ambassador, and to ask. We can, you know.
And if I may interfere, I can tell you, as for example, there is a project for 2 years or 3 years. It's called Windows of Hope, which Ricky Mendel from the Ministry of Education is leading it. and she initiated this project. And they are making a common seminar, online seminars between schools in Israel and Poland about those subjects. So it's a blessed, blessed project.
It can be done. It can be. It's possible.
Thank you. It was very inspiring. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Question.
Dziękuję.
More questions?
Not
Just-
question, by comment,
yes.
2 comments.
Yeah.
It's always surprise how long it take us to find such stories like Gershon or initiate such a project. It wait about 70 years, I don't know what is the number, until Gershon realize and think and initiate this project. And I'm thinking, what are the other projects that we didn't think about yet? This is very important. I must tell you that I'm guiding in Israel tour which call for Holocaust revival. And one of the places that we are visit is the Ena Choresh cemetery. And we are going there because of the story of Abba Kovner. But next to Abba Kovner, not far from Abba Kovner, buried Johanna Lichtenthal. She is right among nations who choose to live in Israel. She saved her husband. And by the end of the day, by the end of the visit, beside the story of Abba Kovner, this is the attraction and visits, the place, that story that inspired the student in Israel. So first, the story of rights among nations, and second, and Gershon, I must tell you that all of us are telling this story and show your project, show this project to our student, which is very important because they deserve it, definitely, those people.
Gershon, can you tell us in percent how many you have from Poland, from other countries?
Yes, it's not official yet, but because I have to refresh the numbers. But when I thought that I have 118 righteous, of course now I have 123. So 67 of them was from Poland and were from Poland. When I mean Poland, I mean the territory of Poland before the Second World War. 19 from Ukraine, 8 from Hungary, 6 from Holland, 3 from France, 3 from Bulgaria, 2 from Belarus, and 1 from Germany, Czechoslovakia, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, Lithuania, Croatia, and 1 from Romania. Those are the numbers. 67 approximately from Poland. More than 50%.
Yes. And I know that at least one case is ongoing, the case of which I mentioned to you and to Katya about grandfather of Eli Aber, which saved his grandma, but he saved her life before they met, even before they knew each other. And he's buried in the Christian cemetery in Haifa. So this is also a case on process. So I hope he will get recognition as righteous among the nation, and then he will be also included in your project. I hope so. And Hannah, you are in the committee of the righteous among the nations of Yad Vashem. So do you know that there are cases of people that somebody recommended on them or applied to get righteous, and he lived in Israel, or you don't have such cases?
The cases I heard in my committee, I don't know, something like that. I know about one case of a woman, maybe you know her. I don't remember her name, I know her grandson. He's a guide in Poland, Adam Koren, that his grandmother was when righteous among the nation. She moved to Israel in the 60s. Mm-hmm. But this is the only
and she's buried in Israel.
Yes, she's buried in Israel. She I think converted even.
So you probably include her in your project, I suppose. Gershon, you know Adam Cohen? Gershon? Okay, somebody, I think the internet, the connection is, okay?
I hear you fine.
Yes,
Me
probably
too.
Gershon. Yes, probably Gershon. The
Yeah, I
internet.
hear you.
Ah, you heard me. Probably you
No, I
know
didn't hear you.
about the grandma of Adam Koren.
Yeah, I know. I know Adam, and I spoke with him, and he told me about his grandmother, and yeah, she's included in the book.
I think, and you are always ongoing process because every time you can find more and more stories. So maybe among, I think, second generations organization, we can find something more about those
First of all,
people.
of course, I'm sure that I didn't found all the names. And it's also interesting to check why did they came to Israel, because part of them came, as I said, to help the country. Part of them married the people they saved. Part of them married Holocaust survivors. Part of them came from religious reasons, like Sister Margaret Claire Bernet, which is married today in Alexandria in Egypt. She came and she was responsible about not orphan house in Jerusalem, but sick Jewish kids, and she did it only for religious reasons. And those are diverse. There are many reasons why did they came, and but all of them connected to the love of the Jewish people and the love of Israel. All of them, or most of them, let's say.
Mm-hmm. So thank you really very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for
questions, comments. This is the time. We have some more minutes, so this is the time to do it. If somebody wants to ask, Camille, you are with us, Camille. I saw you. I see the name, but okay.
Okay.
There he is.
Oh,
Yes,
hi,
hello,
Camille.
hello.
Camille, because you are also involved in stories of rescue in Righteous Among the Nations. So,
Yeah, this topic is very important. We are dealing with such stories here in Poland in our project called by name. Currently, we are working on case in Vyshkup area, and yeah. But in our case, the man who was killed because of helping Jews, he's not recognized, and he was killed in Majdanek, so in concentration camp. So there is no possibility to commemorate him in the place of his death. So this is the recent part of our work here.
Thank you. Well, we are coming to our end.
Thank you very much. We leave you.
Only to the end of the year, not to our end.
No, the end of the year, yes.
The year.
End of the meeting, end of the year, yes. Gershon, you wanted to say something? Gershon?
Azav, he said bye and he left.
Ah, okay, probably had to go. So,
do we have any more information about the book and that you're putting together?
Judy.
Okay, so I am going to summarize, talk about the book and talk in general. I'm sorry that Gershon isn't here because I too was extremely moved by the project that he was describing. I think they're doing incredible work. And if people are doing the same thing in Poland, it's equally incredible and very, very important. First, about our forum in general, I would like to thank Dr. Leganor for being an absolutely marvelous forum coordinator and senior scholar. I don't think that we have 11 forums in our institute. I don't think that we have another international forum that does as much and that is as successful as this forum, and that is all due to Leah. I thank you very much for all the time and the effort and the connections and the care that you put into this forum. This is the only international forum that has regular meetings every year. Whoever can come to an international internet meeting, it's a wonderful thing and it keeps us all in contact. So once again, thank you. We had some fascinating speakers this year. The each meeting is better than the next, and I can't wait until next year to see what speakers you're going to bring and what projects you're going to teach us about. I think we've all learned something, especially today, which bringing people from outside the forum is also a very important thing to do for us to know what is going on. Now about our book. We are making progress. We have almost all the articles already. There are still 4 or 5 articles that are outstanding. I think there are only 3 people who have not yet given in their final articles. We've given them back to some people to make corrections, which we hope to have within the next month. Articles have already gone for language editing. They've all gone through scientific editing. The ones that we have, they've finished that. Some are still in language editing. When we have everything, then Leah and I will sit down and we will write the introduction. You can't do that until you have all the articles because the introduction refers to all the articles. After we finish the introduction, and that will go for language editing, we can put the manuscript together. And there's a lot of technical work that has to be done there. We ask that unless we're talking about an article that is based on figures or illustrations, not to just bring figures and illustrations, but we have several that are based on them. And so we have to put together tables and all sorts of information that the publisher insists on. And yes, Batya, that is, you're going to have a lot of work ahead together with us. But not only you, we have one other article like that as well. And after that, we give it in. When it goes to the publisher will send it for copy editing. Don't ask me when that's going to be because it depends when we finish our part. We have a contract that still gives us time to hand in the final article. It doesn't have to, the manuscript does not have to be handed in this summer because things still have to go for editing. As soon as we hand it in, they will put it in their list, send it for copy editing. That's different than regular language editing. That's to make sure that all the names are written the same way, et cetera, et cetera. We will get them back. We will get one manuscript back from copy editing. We'll get it chapter by chapter. Everybody will get their chapter. And then we have a quick turnaround. You'll have to get it back to us within a week after reading it. We will go through it again. We will give it back. They will make corrections. We will get it a second time. We'll have to check the pictures. We'll have to check the tables, the illustrations. And eventually the book will be published. But unlike other people who put together a book and don't have a publisher, we have a publisher, we have a contract, we are all signed on it. The publisher is very interested in the book and can't wait for us to give it to them. And as I've already published several books with this publisher, with Routledge, I can tell you that once they start, they have a pretty fast turnaround. It will not take years. There are some books that take years and years to come out. Hopefully it will take only several months after they get the final and we will have a book. And it's going to be very exciting that Forum Poland will have a book. And this is once again, thanks to Leah, who gave us the idea in the first place. And thank you to all of you for participating. Those of you who are writing for the book, those of you who decided not to write for the book, but you're cheering us on and you're active in the forum, and that's what counts. So I thank you all, and I thank Leah, and may we continue with the wonderful work that we're doing next year and for many years to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. But really, 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 Judy, without you, nothing could happen. And I'm lucky that I had the privilege you were my moderator for my PhD, and now we some years working together. So I'm really privileged to do everything with you together.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, all of you. And I wish you a nice summer, a good vacation, fruitful vacation. And I hope to see you in, maybe in Poland, maybe in Israel. I myself, I'm going to Germany to give a lecture in a conference in Marburg University in the beginning of July. And probably I will visit in August in Poland. And in November, Ruth, I will come to London. So we have a schedule, and we will have a very, I think, interesting program next year. We will think about together, Judy, what we will focus next year. And my dream is to have a conference face-to-face with our forum. So it will happen. It will happen. sometime. It will happen. So have a nice evening. Thank you very much, and see you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. We keep in contact.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
very much.
Bye.